It's facing me right now. So, all right. So all you need to do is copy the link and give it to people. You know what? Put it here. On you don't have a clip? It does, right? So put it on that. So what will happen is, Scott, can you stand once?
Yeah.
So
I'll be
you're.
there. I'll be there.
Oh, yeah, will stand actually. Why? I'm sorry. I can stand.
That should work, huh? And that's good as long as your battery works.
Yeah, it's not. We'll be there for a while. We'll
That's
go at
good.
least like 20 hours before it dies.
No way.
Yeah.
My computer only goes like maybe 4 or 5 hours and it dies. It's a Dell.
Is that?
Yeah. It's good. It's good. Well, you are ready to go. It's a nice little building here, huh?
Yeah. We're fortunate that one of the other MBAs lets us utilize the space. I have my own office in Plano, but problem is it will get cut off at 6. So like everybody needs some.
Well, I have an office in Bedford if
No,
you
I know,
want to
I
use
know,
it
I know.
anytime you want.
I remember. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can put meetings on at our office for free.
Okay.
And that's in Bedford, so right between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Yep.
So maybe they heard that it was about trust, and they're like, well, that's boring. I don't want to learn about that.
Most people I know want to know. It's a good topic to talk
It
to.
is a great one. So, this organization is your organization, the DFWNBA?
No, I mean we're on the board members, so we have 6 people that's on the board of it, and we're trying to still like market and try to get everybody engaged into it. So the biggest thing is everybody who graduated with an MBA either through it, like we all majority of us went through SMU program, but there's a UTD and everything. But once we graduate, the biggest issue is only the people that graduated in that class stick together because the school itself never actually puts any kind of like program together. So,
Just poking my head.
hey, come on
I heard
in.
there were dogs and ponies in here.
There is. Yeah.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
So that's the.
So you went
What time
to
is showtime?
SNU?
We'll probably wait till everybody trickles in, and we'll just start it off. Yeah.
Whenever.
Whenever it sounds like
That works for
doing it,
me.
yeah.
I like
I went to a school called Southern Nazarene University, so SNU.
Yeah.
And every time I tell people I went to SNU,
Is it all SMU?
Oh, SMU.
Yeah. And
that. Where is Southern Nazarene?
It's in Oklahoma City. It's a small college. But why I went there, I mean, maybe because all my family members went there. But if I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't go there. But
Well, you go back to school, they let you.
and they do.
Yeah.
That's true. She won't let me go back.
No, lifelong learning, come on.
No, we don't want to go.
You don't have to go to Oklahoma, there's plenty of places.
Yeah, SMU. I could go to SMU.
Yeah.
I have to mortgage my home
You
probably.
can go to UTD, UT Arlington, there's all kinds of.
That's true. What school did you graduate from?
Well, I get my MBA from UTD.
Okay.
And throw that bitch in, so.
Well, that's a good school though.
It is.
You can go on with
You're
that.
supposed to, what they coach you to say is somebody goes, oh, I heard that school's hard, and your answer's supposed to be, yes, it is. He was originally filled up with engineers.
You're a Longhorn.
No.
UTD, University of Texas.
comments, right? No, UTD
Yeah,
is.
They have a T-shirt that's, it's actually, it's over 30,000.
Is it University of Texas?
UT is in Austin.
Okay.
It's a big, school, super big school, 60 plus thousand. But the one that plays the Red River Drive. But UT Dallas is part of the UT system. It's here, it was established originally by Texas Instrument as a farm for engineers to feed.
So you're not technically, so it's not affiliated with the one.
No, and they sell a T-shirt in the bookstore that says Texas' only undefeated football team.
No, that's smart. I like it.
So, you know what they win prizes for? The chess team. It's like internationally recognized.
Wow.
So, yeah. But the business school is actually taken over. It was originally engineers, so now it's more business people there than anybody.
Wow. I'm assuming a lot of people probably assume this. You know.
Well, probably just because it's UT today, they figured out. So when it was first built, it was really a commuter school. You know, you lived in Dallas and you drove home and lived with mom and dad. How many students live in Nazarene? Give or take.
I guess there were, that's a good question. My graduating class had, maybe 600 in my graduating class.
You know, just, for 2,500 students maybe.
I guess so. Maybe there were more. Could have been more.
They have to give a grad school?
Yeah, it's about 600 in my graduating class.
Yeah, no, grad school.
We do, yes.
So it's probably more students than that. Yeah, 34,000 easily.
Yeah, we have graduated.
Is that in Oklahoma City?
No, it's in a little town called Bethany.
I know it is. I know it is. Not to be confused with Oregon.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were 600 or 700 in my graduating class. Pretty good size. It was a small school.
One of my daughters went to St. Edwards. Have you heard of St.
Yeah.
Edwards? It's kind of Austin. St. Edwards, essentially across the river from UT. But it's the only sister school in Notre Dame.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, But, so my cousin who graduated from Notre Dame calls me up and says, hey, you don't have quite the name recognition, but you have the same accountants.
So is it Catholic then?
It is a Catholic school. And it's actually a good size, but it's dwarfed by UT.
Yes. Do you work in this building? It's a nice building.
It is. Where do you live?
We live in North Richmond Hills.
Oh, I'm up at 28, so it's, still a trek. It's a trek to go anywhere.
It is. Plano, there are a lot of nice homes there.
Yeah.
I love the shopping area. There's so much shopping.
I joke that I never thought I'd live in a $1 million home. But apparently, Collin County Appraisal District fits me.
Oh, I know.
I have to fight it every year.
It's the values are going way up, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But everything's kind of moving that way.
Well, I've got some development down in Waxahachie, because that's actually, the reason is, it's the exact same distance from downtown Dallas to Plano, downtown Dallas to Waxahachie. So somebody goes, no, I can't afford to live in Plano, I can go to Waxahachie and get twice the home for the same money.
Yeah.
And live there. If I'm working in Dallas, it's like, hey, same commute.
I like the hills in Bottom Center.
Yeah.
My aunt uncle lives there.
Mhm.
It's down this area.
It is. Did you want something to drink or eat or anything?
Maybe a drink.
They have,
You want a drink?
Water, please.
there's some sodas and
Okay.
beer and whatever else.
Oh, yeah. I guess so. Oh, yeah, over there. Hey, you want to come over?
That's what you use for.
No, I don't. I'm good. My hands are straight. Whatever you want. Just put it in this here. Yeah, you know what? But, you know, there wouldn't be.
Oh, sir. Right here. Nobody all right?
The hope is I was very much honest.
It's a good school for MBA. Yeah, and that goes right.
I can just send those.
I went ahead and got a sandwich. So.
Give it out a few minutes. They'll just trickle in.
Good
And,
sandwich.
is it? I made it myself.
Really? Nice.
We need to check with Jake because there's one more person who came and said he registered, he didn't get the email. So
Okay.
I think we need something. That's something we need to probably, maybe I can help your people if we can. We have these already existing email IDs, right, of 200
Yeah.
odd people.
Yeah.
We can actually put them in the info thing, like a MailChimp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. He had manually put anybody in. You just create the list and then just send it
correct,
out.
correct. So that nobody gets missed.
Yeah.
If we put manually, then we will miss
Yep.
out people. So we can actually create that from here on. I can sit one of the days and say, okay, these are the, and export it from an Excel so nobody gets missed.
Yep.
Right? In fact, in future, when we want to do eventually a newsletter or a blog or something,
Yeah.
it'll also be helpful. Yeah.
Anyway. I really like those brownies. They're good.
Are you the system guy tonight?
I am. I try to act like I know what I'm doing.
It's okay. Looks like you know what you're doing.
So did you use FunLaunch to set up your fund?
I started with them, but I got away from them because their attorney was a piece of S. So I went and hired a
No, they
supervisor.
have several attorneys.
Darren Magnum, I
Oh,
think.
they're at Mangum?
Yeah, he was awful.
Mangum and Associates?
Yeah. Like he wouldn't communicate for a month. Like I had to email sad, and I'm like, it's a simple change. Can you please like? And then I had to get like Bridger and everybody else involved. I was like, can you please have him just do this because I feel like a hostage at this moment. So
He was not good.
like he was like he's like turning right. He's just, and I didn't mind. Like I would pay, whatever it is, just let's go keep moving forward. But he just wouldn't respond.
So did he set up your PPM?
No, he did initially, but then I went and got another attorney and I redid it
You
completely.
have, you redid it?
Yeah, I redid it everything completely. Yeah.
Yeah, he was not good. I used him too.
Yeah, his is a boilerplate type things, and there was a lot of things missed in there, and I was like, man, I can't take risks. My level of risk tolerance is like, I just like, hey, let's just redo it
Who
completely.
did you find? Which one did you finally settle with?
So there's another guy named Tilden Machete. He does like syndications. That's all he just does syndications and fun. So this is right, and real estate, so it's right up his alley. It's the same type of thing, and it made sense, and he put it, and he's responsive, which is what I needed. I can't wait and not get
Yeah,
things into it.
Darren Mangum was. Tough to get a hold of sometimes. And you end up getting a call back from your staff,
I didn't even get that.
Well, they paid him $10,000 out of the money.
I know. I mean, that's the cost. I was like, I would have paid an additional like $500, 1,000, 2,000. Just like get me to the finish line. This is like, because time to me is, if we're sitting around waiting for some of these things and it's dependent on him, it's like I couldn't do a lot of things just because I've committed to people that, hey, PPM is here, I got it, and primed all the skids and everything, and it just couldn't do anything. So I lost business because of him.
Yeah.
Because it makes me lose face when I can't keep my word. Like it just.
Yeah, I'd like to find another one myself, but
You
I
guys
have
have like
another
you have like 100 attorneys there, right? For supporting your thing.
no, we have a lot of attorneys, but I would like to connect with another one.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll send you his info.
because I want to find one that specializes in SEC law and stuff. Because I have, I have another fund that I want to set up. I already have one, but I'm setting up another one for trading and stuff. I want to find one that really knows the rules around.
I've ran into a few here in Dallas too, but they're charging me like 150, and I was like, that's it's not
That's
like they were.
pretty steep.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't want to go down that path, so I was just like, okay, I wanted somebody local, but
20, 30, maybe.
right, that's absolutely reasonable, and you can work through it, but so.
There- That person is just probably taking advantage of the situation.
No, I mean I've talked to like Piper and like Grant Holden, like I've talked to like a lot of big firms too, just to see, because I was working with some guys that actually requested a higher like level. They're like, "Who's your attorney?" Like, we don't know who he is. We're not like, they don't want to work with us, So they wanted the bigger names behind it, but we're not there yet. So I was like, okay, just when we get there and second round, third round, yeah, I will make that work. But right now.
I wonder if they provide other things like website login, all that stuff. And I'm saying the companies or the firms that charge 100 or 150,
Mhm.
if they're providing other things like a platform to do the onboarding. That would be interesting to know.
I was gonna take notes on my well.
Hey, this is still good.
Absolutely. When you use Aaron, he actually files everything. You mean he didn't provide the CPM?
He provided it, but there was changes. Make the changes he thought he was. Certain people move. Stop checking down. Like, maybe this guy, I want to make sure we have a space. And I thought it was supposed to be at least for a year.
Yeah.
Follow-ups and that.
Well, Greg, of course, sent 2 text messages, made 1 phone call, and he got his offer. But
I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
yeah, I'm like, well, good, because that takes the pressure off,
Sure.
So,
You get one.
yeah. Well, and I could call Blazers back too and get my whole job back. I can't go back to So what are you thinking about Awesome.
They're awesome, dude.
Wow.
That's
That's awesome.
Oh, man. So that dude was the infant. I just remember when I first met you. Yeah, he had that. Yeah, and you. Oh. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know you were so far away. Thank you for being
What
here.
a small little machine up there. Look at that.
This?
Is that the?
Projector?
Is that, oh, it's not
No, this is
a,
not a-
So me-
so it's a Wi-Fi board?
And you're-
That's just kind of-
So it's a Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Like a, what do you call it, smartphone?
I don't know. But it's allows like I'm controlling.
This month, and then on.
You want to get one of those? Is that a TV also?
Yes, it's a
Well, I
TV
guess
show.
so.
That's
That's
3 minutes.
nice and big.
very
I thought it was a projector.
So you're basically.
Hey guys, we'll get started.
15 hours this year. And I work with them. Now it's like.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So what I'd like to do is just start off with a quick intro. Most of the meetings that we had, basically we've been getting together, but we haven't had a lot of formal introductions and things like that. So what I'd like to do is sort of show you the website, at least get you updated and make sure that I explain like, hey, here's what it looks like. This is how you access it. I'm looking for feedback to say, hey, maybe we should do something different, right? Or you like the way it's set up. So for the website, if you go to the home, click on home, it should show the information there. On the below, it shows the mortgages, the sponsors. Then if you want to know about us, why do we exist, what it is that we're trying to achieve. And by the way, I like interaction, so you guys tell me why. What do you think the purpose of this is? Of BFW MBA?
Free beer.
Free beer, other than the free beer and free food.
Education.
Education. What else? Connections. Absolutely. So, our intent here is that we want to make sure that people that are coming, we're talking with each other, we're networking, we're learning from each other, and we're trying to bring in speakers and, understand how it works. And then every other month, the plan is we'll do like a happy hour, and then another month we'll do some kind of event. So we're going to try to alternate out so you have fun and you learn and you do something. So we're always looking for some kind of feedback to say, yep, this is working, or maybe we do something different. From a team perspective, if you see somebody with this jacket, some guys don't have this jacket. This is a cool jacket to have.
Some guy who actually came up with
Some
the
guy
idea.
who came up with the idea. So,
We all
for-
make mistakes.
so if you go to meet the team up here, so basically it says who's on board. But all that means is we're just trying to coordinate and put this together. That doesn't mean that, we're doing everything spot on or we have all the skill sets that we need. So we still need people to work with us. We need specifically like marketing help. We need certain roles that we need to do better. So we sent out some forms. You should get like a Google form or something that just says, hey, if you want to volunteer for something, please feel free to do so that we can engage with you and we can say, hey, we want you to volunteer and say, hey, my skill set is this, I can do this, and join on board, and then we'll grab you and then help you get involved. So Adam Tunks is on the board here, Tom Prokowski in the back, and then Harina sorry. Harina is in the and then we have two other people, Jake and Trey. Both of them are busy today. They're out of town and couldn't make it. So obviously we'll try to do what we can to make sure that we're all engaged. But if you have some feedback, any one of us, please, let us know. So the events, what we're trying to do is every time we have an event, we're hoping, so we're putting it obviously on LinkedIn. That's the first step. We're just putting it on LinkedIn. And we're emailing everybody saying, hey, this is the event that's coming down the pipeline. So you're seeing it, hopefully in some fashion. If you're not on LinkedIn, you're seeing the email. So either way, but we're putting it on our website too. So if you're following that, you can come there and then join on board. Yep. So next 3 events. So what we have planned is, next event is going to be on April 23rd, which is a Tuesday.
You got March?
Yeah, March 26th.
We have March 26th. I missed that on there, sorry. March 26th. So what we're gonna do on March 26th is basically, we're gonna do this session called Ask and Give. So as a part of your organization or your self-need, or if you're looking for a certain specific ask, we're gonna let you come up and do your little ask for the first 15 minutes. So that allows you to just say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. So if you're a mentor, you can say, hey, I'm really good at this. I want to help people with this. So the first 15 minutes will be used just as an ask and give type thing, but that's March 26th. And then after that, it will be April 23rd, May 30th, and June 25th. So you will go ahead and put this on our calendar. We'll have it on our website, so you'll know, hey, you can plan for this appropriately so that we'll get there. Again, I mentioned the marketing thing. So if anybody is specializing in that area, we need help to try to make sure that we connect with the right people so that we can go do that.
Is that all at 6:30, all at 6:30
So,
here?
yeah, so most of the time, all these are gonna be here at 6:30 because the Bank of Texas has been really hospitable to us, and they've allowed us the space. It's central. We tried it. I think we tried to figure out different locations. We're still open to trying something else if we get higher participation, but with this one, it just seems like we have a place, we have all the resources, so
Right.
we're trying to move with it. Go ahead.
So I would also mention, just for anybody to think about, so we put all of our sponsors on the website and we promote the sponsors. So Bank of Texas here, our speaker and the speaker company, we're the sponsors here. But we do have an ongoing sponsor in Benny Keith Beverage, where they are our exclusive beverage sponsor. And that is an alumni of Tom's program there at Cox. And another alumni runs a catering company, and he sponsored all of the food at the Christmas party. And so part of this is for us, by us kind of concept, where all of us do things in various areas. And if your company wants to be a sponsor, or if you want to sponsor us and use whatever your company has to offer, that's something also that we're very welcome.
And if I can add to what John said too, the idea of sort of the asking or giving, some people that struggle with that. So if I came here and I was just laid off or I was looking for a new opportunity, whatever, the tendency of getting up like John there and saying, hi, my name's John, I need a job. Well, no, that's not the way to do it, but would actually even provide you maybe with a little prep, saying, well, here's what I've done for 15 years, and I'm really good at it, and that's what I'm really passionate about. So I'm looking for my next opportunity. So if you know someone in the business, I'd love to chat with them, et cetera, et cetera. Or by the same token, if you're looking to hire someone, et cetera, you do the same thing, I'd love to chat with you. Then the idea would be to make sure that while you're there, that you connect. Because that was the original purpose of this organization.
Yeah, and even the website, we're gonna update it to where if somebody has a higher option, we put that out there, but it's evolving. So we definitely wanna sync up all the resources together. So if somebody looks like they need something, we'll put that together.
Or if you're looking for money, looking for investors.
So let me introduce Scott McGrath. Scott, welcome today. Just a quick update. What Scott is known for is called asset protection and corporate restructuring. So he is really good at telling you what you didn't learn in school. A little bit of secrets, and he'll tell you information about trust. So just general information. He's going to say the same thing which I'm going to say. These are just words. Don't take anything for granted. Like go do your own due diligence, but he will give you the information just so that he can explain to you things that you have now, somebody that you can go to work with and ask questions about it specifically. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much. Nice to meet you. My name is Scott. My company is called Nexus International, and I'm the compliance administrator. We have an office over in Bedford, Texas. We have about 21 employees right now, and we have about 200 consultants around the country. I would say about half of them are active. Not all of them are active, but We have about 200 consultants. They sell our products or our program. We not only set up trust for people, but we also help our customers with things such as insurance or other things that when you set up a trust, what you have to do is put assets in the trust normally. So we help our customers move assets in the trust. We help them use the trust to connect with their businesses. And so tonight, when I go through the PowerPoint, I'm going to go through it in just a minute, but I'm going to take you through a little process and show you a little bit about what you want to do and what you don't want to do. What are the do's and what are the don'ts about trust? And then on top of telling you what to do and what not to do, I'm going to tell you about how we help our customers and why we do it our way. So the way we do it is different from many companies, most companies. And so just a little bit about me though. I graduated from college, I don't know, 20 years ago, 23 years ago. I started out working for American Express Financial Advisors. I was a financial planner there, and I moved up to a group at American Express called the Advanced Advisor Group, and I learned a lot of stuff. Every day they're always teaching us something. They're always flying someone in from around the world and teaching us all this really cool stuff about either financial planning or investments or trust or whatever. And later I left American Express. I wanted to make my dreams come true, not their dreams come true. So I left and started my own company, and I kept my licenses and things like that. So I did have a Series 7 and 66. I was a RIA, Registered Investment Advisor, for a long time. I ended up letting those licenses go because broker dealers don't like you to sell anything that they don't sell. So when I started selling trusts, okay, I said, you know what, I'll let those licenses go and I'll keep these other licenses because they don't like, registered reps selling trusts. It's, because it kind of crosses the line into legality or the legal world, right? So what I did is went out and hired a bunch of attorneys and hired people that knew what I do and knew how trusts work. And I found this product, actually a customer of mine had this product. So a lot of my clients were multimillionaires. I mean, all of my clients were multimillionaires, and they had different types of trusts. Well, what I learned, I ended up learning a lot of this from my customers, but then I went to actually work with these law firms specifically. And because one thing I learned when doing financial planning is, when you talk about financial planning, a lot of people think you're just going to sell them an annuity or just an investment, or it's all about sales. And so what I found more interesting about financial planning was the foundation of your financial plan. So when it comes down to it, the most important thing wasn't the investment they chose, or wasn't the annuity they picked, or whatever. Those are all a dime a dozen. You can, that's not where you want to focus. You want to focus, number one, in financial planning to be the most successful, because you're here at this meeting tonight because you're smart and you want to be the most successful in everything you're doing. So when it comes to financial planning, what I want to show you and teach you is that you will not become or reach your goals and become the most successful worrying about, did I pick the right investment, or you're going to be the most successful by choosing the right foundation and being able to keep more of what you already earned. Because think about this for a minute. If you're making a lot of money, but you're losing 20-30% of your profit paying Uncle Sam taxes, if you're able to keep 50, 70, 90% of the money you're giving the government in taxes, if you're able to keep that every year, now you don't have to take risk in all your investments. So it's much better for you to keep the money you've already made and not have to worry about, hey, did I choose the right investment, or am I going to get extra percent here, or And so people focus on investments and focus on annuities and all these things. They're focused on their own thing. What I want to show you is how to focus on the money you already made and keeping more of what you already earned. So I approach financial planning a totally different way. We focus on estate planning. We focus on corporate structuring, because most of my clients are business owners. So one thing I will tell you though is I'm not an attorney, okay, and I'm not a CPA. So I'm not an attorney, not a CPA. I don't want to be actually. I want to hire those people. Okay. I don't want to. I'm not the bean counter. I'm not gonna be the CPA. I love them. I hire them, no problem. And I don't want to be an attorney either because I don't want to go back to school. I kind of wish I was an attorney. Instead of being an attorney, I married an attorney. This is my wife Rachel, by the way. She's from Brazil, and so I'm glad she's with me. But when it comes to financial planning, I'm going to take you through a quick PowerPoint. It won't be long. And then we're going to do Q&A, question and answer. And I would submit to you that the Q&A will be the most valuable part tonight. So please, if you have questions, write them down. We will get to your questions, but you're welcome to ask me a question during this presentation. So Nexus International is a corporate financial planning organization. We focus on corporate structuring. Why? The structure, the roots create the fruits. And if I was a farmer, the roots create the fruits. Financial planning is the same way. The foundation of your company or your financial plan is what determines how well you do, okay? Our office is 5 minutes from DFW Airport, right here in Bedford, and you can come visit us anytime. We pick up customers almost every day from the airport, and they fly from around the country. And we spend the whole day. We have whiteboards and presentations, and we make sure they set their company up right. You know, whether they're LLC, corporation, whatever it is. We also have valuation experts that work in our office, and we help companies sell their companies. So it's very important when you sell a company. A lot of times people depreciate all the assets trying to save on taxes. We teach that that's not the right method to save on taxes and depreciate everything. It's a very foolish way to do it. But when they sell their business, when they depreciate everything, what they're doing is lowering all their book values. When they go to sell their company, you know, they bought it here, they depreciated it to here, but they're going to sell way up here. What does that do? Create capital gains taxes. So we fix that problem when they go to sell their company. We make sure they don't pay any capital gains taxes by following the tax code and all the secret codes of the tax code, by the way. So I love this quote. Check this out. It says, Billings Leonard Hand, he's dead now, but he was a very smart judge, okay? And I like him because he said, anyone may arrange their affairs so their taxes shall be as low as possible. They're not bound to choose the pattern which best pays the treasury. There's not even a patriotic duty to increase one's taxes, and over, the courts have said there's nothing sinister in arranging your affairs to keep your taxes as low as possible. Everyone does it rich and poor alike. No one owes the public duty to pay more than the law demands. So if your CPA is telling you have to pay these taxes, you have to do this, you have to do that, you may have to do that, but one thing you have to do is you have to say, you know, if I have to pay $100,000 in tax, maybe I should figure out why I'm paying $100,000 in tax. And it just so happens that if you change the way that your structure is, maybe you don't have to pay $100,000 in tax. Okay, and if there was a structure out there where I could do the same business I have the same employees, do everything the same, but when it comes to tax time, and now I'm paying $30,000 instead of $100,000, you know, which looks better, A or B? Like you're at the eye doctor, and he's like, which looks better, A or B? Which one are you going to choose? The one where you're paying the $100,000 or the one where you're paying $30,000? So I love this quote. So go to the next screen here, and so. Tax avoidance is, and by the way, we will talk about trust in just a minute, the do's and don'ts, but I can't talk about that until I explain a couple things for you, because if I say do this and don't do that, you're like, well, is that legal, or is that, you know, a lot of people are gonna be like, that sounds too good to be true, you know, so I want you to understand that everything we do is based on three things: tax code, case law, and contract law. Tax code, case law, and contract law. Everything we do. So everything I say, I can back up with the tax code, I can back it up with case law, or I can back it up with contract law. Especially this right here. So this is the IRS handbook. If you go to work for the IRS, you have to read this book. You have to know this book like the back of your hand. And it says right here, avoidance of taxes is not a criminal offense. Any attempt to reduce, avoid, minimize, or alleviate is permissible. So if I go to reduce my taxes, you're not breaking the law. Don't feel like you are. And if your CPA says you owe 100,000. Well, I do owe 100,000 only because of this structure I chose. So we one of the things we say to our customers is the structure you choose dictates the tax code you use. So if you choose the wrong structure, guess what? You have to use these codes, and you don't have any choice but pay all this money. So we're going to change the structure. We're going to get you the best possible outcome. So, by the way, speaking of best possible outcomes, Fortune 500 companies, half of all of them pay zero federal income tax. Half of all Fortune 500 companies pay zero federal income tax. So they pay a lot of taxes, but they're payroll taxes. And so most people don't know this, but most of all the money the government gets, 90% of all the money they receive is all payroll tax. So most of the taxes the government survive on is all payroll tax. So these companies don't only pay payroll taxes, or maybe property taxes. But what they're doing is they're making it, they may make millions or billions of dollars in profits, but they're not paying any tax on that. And they take advantage of the same tax code that you and I can take advantage of. By the way, has anyone ever read the tax code, the whole tax code? I did a meeting like 2 years ago, you won't believe this. There were 250 IRS enrolled agents in the room, 250 of them, okay? Now, they don't work for the IRS, but they're an enrolled agent is someone you hire to represent you. So if I walk in a courtroom, I need an attorney. Okay. If I go to the IRS, don't hire a tax attorney. Trust me. Hire an enrolled agent. Okay. They know the tax code usually better than most attorneys. And I've been doing this for a long time. And you would think that a tax attorney is smarter than an EA, but if you go to the courtroom, you need an attorney. But if you go to the IRS, you need an EA. I'm in the room with 250 of them. And I asked, has anyone read the whole tax code? None of them raised their hand, okay? And these are IRS enrolled agents. No one reads the tax code, okay? I don't know why they say this stuff. And here's why. Because it's 14,000 pages, okay? So if I were to stack the pages of the tax code from the floor to the ceiling, it would go from the floor all the way to the ceiling. It's 14,000 pages. No one reads it. And so what I will tell you is in those 14,000 pages, you have a lot of options that you don't even know about. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So when you set up a trust, okay, let's talk about trust, because a trust is my number one product at Nexus. So I'm going to grab this little sheet here. Now, I need a helper. Someone want to help me for a minute? Can anyone come up here? Anyone? Okay. I'm going to hand this to you. Does anyone want to follow along with the tax code? Anyone want to follow along? Okay, yeah. She'll hand it to you. Okay. So this is just a simple handout that we give out. It's called an executive summary. So anytime I present something, I need to present it in a thoughtful way. Okay. And that's why I want you to read the executive summary, because I don't want you to just listen to what I'm saying. I want you to know that it's real, it's legitimate. I don't make anything up. So I am the owner at Nexus. I hire a lot of people to help me, much smarter than me, a lot of them, and attorneys and everything. But I hire people because, we have a lot of clients. We have more than 1,000 clients that have our program. So I want to show you. I'm going to go through this if you have this, turn to page 4. You can open this to page 4 real quick. I want to show you the tax code that we use. Okay, remember I said the structure you choose dictates the tax code you use. Okay, so this is the tax code we use, and I'm going to go through this in just a minute. But so getting back to the title of the message tonight, trust, do's and don'ts. What do you do? What do you don't do? Okay, let me start out by saying this. Okay. 99% of all trusts in America, does anyone know what kind of trust they are? 99% of all trusts in America are this type of trust.
IRF trust?
Say it again.
An IRF trust?
They're revocable.
Say it again.
Revocable.
Revocable. 99% are revocable. And you're probably thinking of irrevocable. Okay? So 99% of all trusts in the United States are revocable trusts. 99%. And otherwise known as living trust. Okay, have anyone heard of a living trust? Now, what that means, a living trust means you created the trust while you were living. In other words, it means you did not create, they call it inter vivos, but when you set up a living trust, it means your trust did not begin after you died. Because you could create a will that says, hey, after I die, I want the court to do A, B, C, and D. Okay, that's called a testamentary trust. Okay, it means I want to set my trust up after I die. Okay, so if you set it up during your lifetime, it's called a living trust. And most 99% of all those types of trusts are grantor trust, or otherwise known as revocable trust. Okay, when you call up an attorney, you say, hey, I'd like a trust. What type of trust do you think he's going to set up for you? A revocable trust or an irrevocable trust? Revocable. 99% of all trusts are revocable. That means, what does it mean, revocable? It means if I set up a trust and I put all this stuff in it, right? Revocable means you have the power to take it all right back out. That's all revocable means. You get the power to take it all back. So that's what revocable trust is. And irrevocable trust says, you set up this trust and I put all this stuff in it, houses, boats, cars, gold, guns, jewelry. So all this stuff in this irrevocable trust, you can never take it back out. Okay? If you did, you're going to create a lot of tax consequences, and you don't want to go down that road. So again, two types, revocable or irrevocable. But trusts can also have other things. They can also be grantor trust. They can be non-grantor trust. They can use the simple tax code. They can use the complex tax code. There's all these ways you can build. I have a kid, I took him to the mall, and he goes to this store called Build-A-Bear, right? You can build a bear any way you want to build it. You can build it with hair or no hair. You can build the bear any way you want to build it. The trust is the same way. You can build this trust any way you want to build it. But that's why the tax code is so big, because you have options. And so my job is to help you determine which trust you need. And so if someone was dying on their deathbed, I would never sell them the trust in this folder right here. I would sell them a living trust. Because they're about to die, and they're on their deathbed, I'd sell them what the 99% of trusts after are. I'd sell them a living trust. Because that means in a couple of days when they die, everything transfers to the children. And then I would talk to the children about my trust. See, let me explain. Let's see. If you haven't died yet, okay, you need three things. You need to have control of your assets. So if you haven't died, if you're about to die, you don't need any more control. You just need to make sure that the assets go to the person who is about to get the assets once you pass away. So I would sell a living trust. But here's what you have to understand. We do not set up living trusts at Nexus. We do not set up the 99% of all trusts in America. We don't set those types of trusts up. Because in most cases, it's the wrong thing for the customer. Because they want this right here. They want what I call privacy control. They want asset control. They want tax control. They want liability control. They want all types of controls. There's actually four. I put three on here. But there's really four. But our customers want all types of control. And then they not only want this, but I'm going to go to the next slide. They want that control. Watch this. Before the grave, in other words, they want the control today, all the way to the day they die. Okay, they want control before the grave. They want control at the grave, which is what that living trust does. And then they want control from the grave. So if 99% of all people in the United States, 99.9% of everyone in the United States that have a trust, they have a living trust. So they only, watch this, they only get control at one point in time at the grave. They do not get any control before the grave, and they do not get control from the grave. Because a living trust does not give you any options from today until the day you die. You don't get to control privacy, liability, taxes, or assets. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you buy the living trust, if you're in the 99% of the people in the country, 99.9% of the people in the country that buy a trust, you only get control at the grave. What does that mean? That means if you get in a car wreck, okay, and you accidentally hurt or kill someone, and when they sue you, they go to court, they go for damages, they go for policy limits, they go for everything they can. But the main thing they go for, what you have to understand is when you take away their ability to earn income, They go for what's called human life value. So when I worked at American Express, they had something called the 4 rules of insurance. One of the rules of the 4 rules is human life value. When it comes to insurance, what do you have to explain to the customer? There's 4 things you need to explain to the customer. One of those, human life value. If you were to die, or I'm sorry, let's say you caused someone to die, they will sue you not for damages and not for policy limits. They're going to sue you for human life value because you're going to take away their ability to earn income. So what I want you to understand is that you want not only benefits when you die so that everything goes to your children, but what about today? What about right now till the day I die? Like I'm 47 years old. I think I'm going to live for 44 years. See, I want to have benefits with my trust, not when I'm 87 years old and I die. I don't want just control when I die. I want control right now until I die. So with this trust that we sell at Nexus, I'm going to show you, but you have complete asset protection or asset control, complete privacy control, complete tax control, and complete liability control. So what I mean by that is if I have the trust that the 99% have, and I only have control of the grade, when I leave this building tonight, I get in my car, if I had a wreck and I only had a living trust, when they sue for human life value. And the trust that most people have, it becomes part of a lawsuit. Let me explain why. Because when they sue for policy limits or for human life value, everything in a living trust is part of your personal estate. People don't know that. They think, hey, if everything's in a trust, I'm safe. No one can take my assets. That's not true. A living trust is part of your personal estate. So that means any lawsuit, even if a creditor comes to you and says, hey, you owe me $100,000 because you did to me A, B, and C, so now you owe me $100,000. They can tell the judge, say, Judge, they set up this living trust because they had an alter ego. It's called alter ego. If you Google it, just Google alter ego. Okay? They tell the judge that you had an alter ego, and anything in a living trust can be attached to a lawsuit. It's that simple. So a living trust, the trust that 99.9% of everyone in the United States has, does not give you asset control. Why? Because if they can take it from you, did you really have control if they can take it from you? The trust that we sell, okay, no one can take the asset from you. Not even the IRS, not even the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay, believe it or not. They can't take it from those trusts because the case law supports with multiple cases where people tried to take assets out of the trust that we set up, and the courts have ruled that everything in the trust that we set up, everything in that trust is considered exempt property. Means it's exempt from a turnover order. So if you go to a court and you lose a case and the judge gives a judgment, the next thing he does is give what's called a turnover order. The turnover order says, hey, you lost this judgment. You need to turn over all these assets and pay off this judgment. The trust that we set up is exempt from turnover orders. That means you cannot go into a courtroom and get any asset in the trust that we set up. So my clients come to me, say, Scott, I want all those 4 controls that you talked about. I don't want the privacy control. I don't want anyone to even know who my beneficiaries are. I want all this cool privacy control. I want asset control. I want to be able to leave tonight, get in my car, and if I have a wreck, my kids are not going to lose everything that I've worked my whole life for. They want all these controls. So we'll go to the next screen real quick. The trust that we set up has been around, you won't believe this, for 500 years, almost 500 years. The trust that we set up is called a Spendthrift Trust. The Spendthrift Trust began in England in 1533. The first trust was set up in 1533. So when Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1942,
1492.
Just making sure y'all are listening. When Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, he brought with him, and all the people that came, they brought something called contract law. Okay? Does anyone know here what contract law is? Anyone ever heard of contract law? Okay? Contract law is the law, like if I walk and knock on your door and say, hey, I'd like to mow your yard, but here's the catch. I need you to pay me $1 million. to mow your yard. Did you know that you could contract with someone and mow their yard for $1 million? And guess what? The government cannot come between that contract. They can't do it because contract law supersedes statutory law, it supersedes criminal law, it supersedes civil law. Contract law supersedes all of the forms of law. And there's multiple cases that I can explain why and how it works. But contract law, they brought with them contract law, which is your ability to form a contract with me. And in fact, it's so important. By the way, let me just read this before I go to the next screen. It says, the unique trust structure began back in 1533 when King Henry VIII set it up. But today, our trust does not operate under contract law. It's not called it used to be referred to as the contract law trust. They don't do that anymore. Why? Because they changed it. In 1952, they changed and came out with something called the Uniform Commercial Code. Okay? The Uniform Commercial Code governs these contracts now, these trusts. So no longer is it under contract law, our trust. It still uses contract law, but it's governed under the Uniform Commercial Code. Why? Because if I were to only deal, and I don't have time to go into this right now, but if I were to only deal in gold and silver, then I could continue calling this a contract law trust. But because we use these little Federal Reserve notes, okay, now I can't, it's not contract law anymore. Now it's based in the Uniform Commercial Code because we're using Federal Reserve notes. And there's a long history behind that, and I don't have time to go into it, but our trust is not a pure trust, it's not a grantor trust, it's not a common law trust, and it's not a foreign trust. A lot of people confuse our program. In fact, if you go on Google right now, and you were to Google this type of trust on Google, you're going to see a lot of groups out there that have gotten in trouble because they set up the trust wrong or they operated it wrong. Okay, and so they end up setting up a pure trust, or they tried to do what we do in the grantor trust or revocable trust. If you have the wrong structure, it doesn't work. Okay, the reason why is because when you set up a trust, by the way, the only way to set up a trust is to give an asset to the trust, okay? You have to gift or grant or give an asset to the trust. Once someone gifts the asset to the trust, now the trust is what's called funded. So tonight we talked about do's and don'ts. The number one thing never to do in a trust is never set up a trust and not gift the first asset in. People do not believe me when I tell you this, but it's true. 30% of all trusts are paperweights. They're not really trusts. The reason why is because they go to a lawyer, they pay a bunch of money, and the lawyer gives them a book, and they set the book on the table, and they think that grandpa has a trust because he has the book on the table. But he doesn't have a trust because the person who bought the trust never funded the trust. You have to fund the trust, meaning you have to put the first asset in. So if I create a trust and I have this beautiful book on the table, but I never take the first asset and put it in, I have a paperweight here. I don't have a trust. Okay? So the number one do and don't in trust, the number one thing is to never set up a trust without funding it, because you'll waste all your money and your time. Okay? So trusts have to be funded. But what does that mean? It means to set up a trust, you have to gift an asset in. So if I gift it in, we'll go back one. If I gift an asset in, it's a grantor trust. It's a grantor trust if I gift the asset in. So all trusts start out being grantor trusts. Okay? But if the grantor dies, if I gift the first asset in, the grantor dies, now the trust is a non-grantor trust because the grantor doesn't exist anymore. Okay? And so I gift the first asset in. Now the trust is living and breathing and active, and it's a real trust. Why? Because it has its first asset. Okay? But here's what we do with the trust. What we do is we take the trust, we gift the first asset in, but in our program, the grantor signs a piece of paper that says he or she resigns from the trust. Okay? So when a grantor puts the first asset in and they resign, they say they have nothing to do or no claim to hold no claim to this trust ever again. Now the trust becomes a non-grantor trust, which is good because remember that tax code that's 14,000 pages long? If you have a non-grantor trust, you have access to a lot of cool tax codes that people don't know about. Here's the problem though. Well, if I grab the phone and I call any attorney anywhere in Dallas, call up and ask any attorney and say, hey, I'd like a trust. Can you set me up a trust? Number one, he's gonna do two things that are wrong. The first thing the attorney does, and by the way, trust me, test it out tomorrow. Call up an attorney and say, hey, I'd like a trust. Number one, he's gonna sell you a living trust. He's not gonna sell you an irrevocable trust. He'll sell you a revocable living trust, which, by the way, remember, has no benefits from now until I die, right? So I'm gonna go 40 years with no benefits because that's just what the attorneys do for some reason. But here's the problem. So not only did he set up a revocable living trust, but he made me the grantor, okay? He said, you're the one gonna be the one gifting the asset in. Because if I get the asset in and it's a grantor trust, I'm the grantor, okay? But let me explain how trusts work with the IRS and with our government, okay? Remember I said 99% are living trusts, right? Well, what does that mean? That means 1% are irrevocable. So 99% are revocable living trusts. That means 1% are irrevocable. But there are no benefits at all, none, except for your assets transfer at the grade, right? There are no benefits when you set up the 99%. But over here on the 1%, where all the benefits are in the 1%. So here's the problem here with the government. The government said that if you set up a trust in the 1 percentile, okay, there are 3 people in the trust. There's a grantor, there's a trustee, and there's a beneficiary. Okay? To set up a trust, you need 3 people. What are the 3 people, everyone? Grantor,
Trustee.
beneficiary. Okay, there's 3 people in the trust. If you don't have one of those 3 people, you don't have a trust. You have to have 3 people to set it up. Here's the problem. Over here on the 99% side, you can be all 3 people if you want, okay? But there's no benefits. So the government says, hey, we're not gonna give you any benefits, but we're gonna let you be all 3 people if you wanna be. We're gonna let you be the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. But if you want benefits, the grass is green on the other side. If you want the green grass over there and you wanna have all the benefits, you only get 1 position. Okay, the IRS has a test called a control test. So over here in the 1%, where all the benefits are, you can only have 1 position. So what are the 3 positions again in the trust? Grantor, trustee, beneficiary. You only get to have 1 of those. So which one do you think the attorney is gonna make you as soon as you call him? He's gonna make you the grantor. So what can you not be?
Either of the other 2.
You can't be the beneficiary and you cannot be the trustee. So what do you think they have to do to manage all the assets in the trust? They can't be the trustee and manage anything. So what do they have to do? They have to hire someone. So have you ever heard of, you go down the road, you see ABC Bank and Trust. You ever see the Bank and Trust? All these banks are all they're ready with their suits on, ready to go to manage all your assets, right? They're only managing your assets because you can't be the trustee. But think about this for a minute. Let's put our thinking caps on. If we can only have 1 spot, 1 position in the 3 trusts, okay, which one would you want to be? Would you want to be the trustee managing everything, the one that granted the first asset, or the beneficiary? Which one do you want to be? You want to be the trustee. So what can you not be now? You can't be the beneficiary, you can't be what? The grantor. So when someone comes to our office in Bedford and we set up a trust for them, we don't let them be the grantor. We say, hey, you need to choose a grantor. The grantor can be anyone other than you or anyone in your family. It can be your preacher from church. It can be your best friend from high school. Okay? Because remember, you got the 99% over here with no benefits. You got the 1% over here with all the benefits. But the trick is they can't be the grantor because then they can't manage their own assets because the IRS, remember, we have a control test. The IRS will not let you be 1 or 2 or 3 positions. They're only going to let you be at 1 position. So if I'm going to be the trustee and manage all of our assets, the homes, the cars, the boats, the gold, the guns, the jewelry, the rental properties, if you want to manage everything, which is what you want to do, you can't grant the first asset in. So when we set up a trust for someone, we tell them, you choose someone to be the grantor. And all they have to do is put in $50. They put in $50, they grant the first asset in the trust. Now the trust is living, breathing, and it's active and ready to go. It has a bank account, has an EIN number, and it has constitutional law protection. The trust that we set up has just as much constitutional law protection as a human does. Okay, it has its own EIN number, it has everything. So, did you have a question? Someone back there?
I have a question.
Okay.
You keep using the word the first grant, right? So just the first time you cannot be, after that you can fund it. Because you said the first grant has to be someone else.
Yeah, so the first asset that goes in, it needs to be given to the trust by someone other than you.
Then after that, you can.
But no, that's the thing. And let me explain something. Anytime if I were to give an asset to the trust, now that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked it, because everything we do here, okay, everything we do at Nexus and everything we do with our trust, if an asset ever goes in the trust or ever comes out of the trust, it must have a contract attached to it. Okay, and this is why. Because in order for our trust is a non-statutory trust. You remember the 99% over here? Those are all statutory trusts, controlled by the state. Our trust is a non-statutory trust that the state has no control over. In fact, I'll show you some court cases. Fletcher versus Peck, Elliott versus Freeman. I can show you a bunch of court cases where the states even tried to do eminent domain. Our trust can hold property that's not subject to eminent domain. Okay? Our trust can, in fact, the court cases, if you read the court cases, it says that the contract clause in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, it's called the contract clause. The contract clause says no state can pass a law on carrying the obligation of contract. Meaning, when I set up a trust for my client, no state can come in and change that contract. And that's a beautiful thing because it's governed under constitutional rules, not state rules. And so what I'm trying to say by that, to answer your question, is once that first asset is granted in that trust is a legal trust now, but everything else that goes in needs to go in with the contract. Because that trust now is not a statutory trust. You don't want to ever give anything to that trust or gift or grant it. But why? Because the minute you take, say you have a car, or let's say you have a house and you file a quitclaim deed and put that house into the trust without a contract, without a bill of sale, you just gifted an asset in and you made that trust now a grantor trust. And we don't want a grantor trust because grantor trusts are statutory. I don't want the state having any power over me or my assets. And the minute you gift even one asset into the trust, you make it a statutory trust where the state can have power over you.
What does that contract look like?
It's a simple bill of sale. It's so easy. And so if I move my house into the trust, or I move my car into the trust, or any asset that goes in or any asset that comes out, it needs to have a contract associated with it.
So it's like Scott sold his car to the trust,
Right.
not gifted the car.
That's exactly right. And where everyone messes up, when all these attorneys, if they tell you, oh, just file a quitclaim deed, just get your assets in the trust, you're good to go. No, you don't want to get anything in the trust because what you're doing is giving an asset to. If I file a quitclaim deed, or if I just retitle it, go down the county and change the title on something, if you just change title or file a quitclaim deed or something, you're just giving an asset to the trust, and what you're doing is saying, hey, IRS, I have a statutory trust here.
Sure.
I'm going to use the
What's
gifting
the
law.
consideration that the trust gives
That was
back
my next question.
in the contract?
Do you actually have to exchange monies or something?
No, but here's the beautiful thing. When there's a contract means two parties are involved, right? So when you put the asset in on the contract, guess what? The trust now owes you that money. Okay? So the first thing people say is, well, hey, if I have $1 million in property, because my clients are wealthy, they have millions of dollars. When I have $1 million in property, I just sold it to the trust. The trust has no money in the bank account, but it doesn't need money. Why? Because the trust can give me back a demand note, a promissory note. So I was in a meeting the other day, And I do at least one meeting a week. I'm gone a lot, she hates it, but this older lady, she's worth probably $20 million. She's like, are you telling me that when I set up this trust, everything I've worked for the last 50 years is going to be in the trust and I don't have anything in my name anymore? Because she thought the minute she sells everything into the trust, she owns nothing. Remember,
She's a trustee.
she's the trustee, that's right. That's what she didn't remember. She's the trustee. But I said, no ma'am. I said, when you sell everything in the trust, guess what? You're not gonna own that house anymore. You're not gonna own those 1,000 acres that you've owned right now. She owned 1,000 acres. You're not gonna own the 1,000 acres anymore, but you're gonna be the trustee of the 1,000 acres. And guess what? The day that you sell that property in the trust is gonna hand you a piece of paper that says that you hold all the paper on those assets. So her name is Miss Smith. Miss Smith, you're not gonna lose $1 in value when you put all of your assets in that trust. You won't own the asset, but you hold the paper on all the assets. You hold the debt. In other words, this trust over here has a balance sheet, has a P&L. It has a in the bookkeeping, there's a no payable account. There's a debt on the books of the trust, and that trust now owes you $20 million. Okay, so even though you don't own the asset, you hold the paper of the asset, and anytime you want your $20 million back, you just demand the money from the bank account of the trust, and you just transfer the money over to your personal bank account anytime you want, because it's a demand note, it's on demand. So you don't lose anything. You don't own the asset, but guess what? You don't want to own the asset. Why? Because remember, if it's in your personal estate, they can attach it to any lawsuit. Okay? Remember I said there's 4 controls: privacy control, liability control, asset control, tax control. You don't want ownership. Ownership brings the lawsuits to you. Okay? It's like a magnet for lawsuits. If you're the owner, guess what? If I loan my kid my car and he has a wreck, they're going to sue him, but guess who they're also going to sue? Me, I'm the owner, right? Well, I don't own a car. My trust owns my car, okay? So they can't sue me ever. And so what I'm saying is, number one, you want all your assets in the trust. But number two, because you don't want them to ever be able to sue you as an owner, okay? Another problem with being an owner is taxation. If you're the owner, not only can they sue you to death, they can tax you to death. So the best part about this presentation isn't really the lawsuits, because most of the people in this room probably don't have a lot of lawsuits against them.
Plus, you can get an umbrella policy of some sort, and so an easy solution to.
Yeah, but did you know that an umbrella policy actually makes you a magnet for lawsuits? Because as soon as they find out you have the umbrella policy, attorneys love that, to find out you have an umbrella policy. So having an umbrella policy can actually invite more lawsuits. Because you usually people will wave a flag, hey, I have an umbrella policy. Well, that just invites the lawsuit, right? And so umbrella policies are smart, but the beautiful thing is, do you really want that lawsuit? Do you really want your name in the paper? You don't want that. That you were sued for $20 million. You don't want that. But we'll go to the next slide. But the most exciting part of the presentation is not the asset protection. Even though it's really cool to have asset protection, the most exciting part is you get to keep the majority of the tax money you're currently paying right now. When I show you how this works, you're going to see, by the way, this man right here, John Rockefeller was probably one of the wealthiest men ever in the United States. But that's what people believe. He's actually the poorest man ever. Why? Because what did he say that was so famous? Anyone know?
Didn't he put all of his life insurance in and then they keep paying it on, so he actually owned nothing?
Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Own nothing, control. That's what he was famous for saying. So they would ask him, John, how did you get so rich? He was the wealthiest man in the United States. How did you do it? He said, own nothing. And people are like, that doesn't make sense. You're the wealthiest man. How are you going to own nothing? And because people think ownership means you're wealthy. It doesn't mean you're wealthy. It means you're a lawsuit magnet. If you're an owner, you're a lawsuit magnet. You don't need ownership to enjoy an asset. For me to drive the car that we drove here tonight, a BMW, we don't need ownership of that car to drive here. We just need to have the keys, okay? And so we drove here as trustees of a trust. We didn't drive here as owners of that BMW. So all I'm trying to say is ownership is not worth the paper it's written on. Just remember that. Own nothing, control everything. You need control. You don't need ownership, you need control. And so once I show you how to get tax control, so when I do big meetings with hundreds of people in the room, most, some people are like, well, you have me at hello. Well, they have me at the asset protection or the privacy. But when I start talking about tax control, that's when people actually get really excited. Because now, how much did you pay in taxes? 30,000, 50,000, 100,000? I was in a room the other day with these people that paid 10 million in taxes. They paid a lot of tax money. And when they found out they could keep that tax money because they didn't owe it. And so what I teach when we get to the tax part, I teach that you don't owe it because it wasn't taxable income. And we show you how to do transactions without you creating the tax in the first place. All right, next slide. So the first thing people think in a trust, remember trust do's and don'ts, right? The first thing you think in a trust is that when I die, everything needs to go to my kids. That's the first thing people think. So what does that mean? That means everything here needs to go down there. But that's not what Nelson Rockefeller did, or John Rockefeller did. See, when John Rockefeller died, nothing here went down to his kids, but everything down there came up to the trust. So when John Rockefeller died, Nelson became the trustee of the trust. It's called a successor trustee. So you don't need the assets going to people. Okay, remember, ownership is not worth the paper it's written on. So why do you want your assets going to your kids? You don't. You want them coming to the trust is what you want. Control is everything, okay? So own nothing, control everything. So when John died, his grandson Nelson became the trustee. So his grandson had all the control as soon as John Rockefeller died. Yes?
What's the point of the beneficiary?
So what you have to know about beneficiaries is beneficiary only means access to the assets. So my kids can live in the houses, drive the cars, take the boat to the lake. Why do they need ownership if they can live in the house, drive the cars, take the boat to the lake? They don't need ownership. They just need access. So beneficiary, so that's a good question. Why be a beneficiary? Or what do my kids get? Well, they get access. They get the keys in their hand to the car, or they get the key to the house, or they get to go to the ski house in Colorado if they want. They don't need ownership because anyone ever heard the term trust fund baby? They don't need ownership. They're trust fund babies. They have all the keys to everything. Why do you need ownership if you have all the keys? And so that's what a beneficiary does. Beneficiaries hold the keys if you let them have it. But what's funny is I can take those keys right back any day I want. I'm the trustee. I get to control if they hold the keys or not. You see? And that's how these types of trusts work. So he said this is a quote from Nelson, not from John. So he said the same thing his grandpa said. And that thinking just kept going on.
Before we run off to this, is that also a contract? The trustee says this beneficiary has access to this estate or to this asset, and this is our contract?
No.
Or is it just a verbal agreement? Here's the keys, have a good time.
It's verbal, but there is a document that says, hey, you are a trustee, you are a beneficiary. There is a appointment of trust beneficiary document in the trust.
Okay.
So there is one document, yes. And you can also form as many contracts as you want. You can say, hey, sign right here, these are the rules of the house, you can have this key as long as you follow these rules. You can create whatever contract you want, right? And a lot of people say, well, Scott, you got a good thing going, but guess what? They're gonna change the law. You're gonna lose it all. They're gonna change the law when you lose it all. And so this lady right here, she was an activist, and she said, never be deceived, the rich will permit you to elevate the law. So I don't know if y'all know this, but Section 643 in the tax code has never been changed since it was written. All the other codes have been changed, but not 643. These codes are not going to change Okay, why? Because there are people in high places that make sure it never gets changed. Okay, so don't be deceived that the rich will permit you to vote away. They're not going to change that. Plus,
What is that? 643.
643 is page 4. Remember I said turn to page 4? By the way, let's read page 4 real quick. Okay, everyone turn to page 4. Okay, it's very exciting to read this page here. So, just so you guys know, the number one reason people come to my office is capital gain taxes. That's the number one reason they come. Is they hate it. They hate capital gain taxes. And so, what's funny is this code starts out, the very first word in the code is gains. The very first word in the code is gains. Gains from the sale or exchange of capital assets, that's called capital gains. Gains from the sale or exchange of capital assets, it doesn't say may be excluded, it says shall be excluded. Shall be excluded to the extent that the gains are allocated to corpus. Well, what does corpus mean? Corpus means the body of the trust. Anything in that trust that's designed to grow the value of the trust is called the corpus. And then you do not, look right there, the word not, do not pay credit or require distribution to any beneficiary during a taxable year. You know what you know why they put that sentence in the very first part of it? Because they wanted to cancel out 99% of the people. The minute you read that sentence, 99% of all trusts read the first sentence and they're already disqualified. Why? Because living trust, revocable trust, use the simple tax code and you have to distribute everything. Do you realize when you call that attorney and say, I want a trust, and he sells you a living trust, the trust is written to distribute everything. And so the first sentence right there says, as long as you do not pay credit or require distribution. Well, your trust from the day it was written required distribution. So this tax code, you have to throw in the trash because you can't use it because your trust was written incorrectly. And so the first time your CPA reads this code, oh, my client's out, my client can't do this because they have a living trust. Well, it just so happens that 99.9% of all trusts are revocable or living trusts. So I hate to say this, but you're screwed from the start, okay? 99% of the people have the wrong trust. They have a trust that requires distribution, yeah.
How many years have you utilized this strategy?
Me? 7 maybe? I don't know. I found out about the trust about 7 years ago. Me personally, I've been utilizing it for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years.
The reason I've been in wealth management and asset management for about 20 years. And the reason I said year round is I never do a living trust because my people intend to stay wealthy. And so my average client's somewhere above 20 million.
You do ILETs, don't you?
I don't love ILETs, actually. We do some ILETs, but we set up a dual slap because it was an 80-year-old client. That was for a different thing. But my point is the most important thing that we talk about is getting your stuff put up in a trust.
Yeah.
And the number one thing we always say is your goal is to be broke on paper. I want it to look like you were broke on paper because we tax wealth. And if you don't own anything, you don't have to pay anything. So that's why I was curious how long you've been utilizing this.
Okay, well, I only found out about it about 7 years, unfortunately, ago. I've heard of every tax strategy on the planet, but you have to understand, not a lot of people know about this trust. It's kept very well secret. It's been secret for a long time. In fact, I will pay you money if you even can find a CPA. I'll pay you $500 if tomorrow you find me a CPA that will do the taxes on this trust. I'll pay you $500 tomorrow. Because if I find a CPA, because we have CPAs, but there's very few of them out there. I want more in my circle. I want more CPAs, but the problem is, number one, they don't know this code. And even when they read the code, they don't understand it. Why? Because no one teaches how the rules work with irrevocable or revocable. They don't know there's a control test. They don't know that you can only have one position in an irrevocable trust. They don't know that. And because they're never taught that. But you go read the textbooks, they don't teach it anywhere. And then what they do, they make people fail or learn by trial and error. The IRS comes down and puts it, in the newspaper. this person's fraudulent, they make people look terrible, and they put on this big spectacle, that all these people are going to jail, and, it's unfair the way it's set up. It's set up to make sure you never read this page right here, okay? Because they don't want you knowing that you have options of not, because everyone, look on page 4 right here, and look at the very last sentence on this page, okay? Everyone look at the last page. What does it say, the last 5 words on this page? It says, someone read me the last 5 words on the page. Well, that's yellow. What does it say? What do the 5 last words say? Someone read it.
Shall not be considered income.
Shall not be considered income. The IRS does not want you to read that sentence. Do you realize that if you set up your income correctly, that it shall not be considered income? And I'm talking, I have clients that have tens of millions of dollars going into this trust, and the IRS code says, hey, it's not income. And if it's not income, what does it mean? It's not taxable. And if it's not taxable, you don't pay any tax. So, yeah, go ahead.
Your trust, how does look back laws affect that?
The look back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look back.
Yeah, so there is a law called the look back law. Look back laws only apply to statutory trusts. They don't apply to this trust.
So grandma's getting old,
Right?
she's gonna end up in a nursing home.
Right.
I want to pay the bill.
Right.
We take her assets, put it into.
Yeah.
into
So
trust.
grandma's old, they're gonna, yeah, and so what they say, well,
But they said, you put it in the week before, put her in the home.
Yeah.
And
and
I say grandma's broke.
yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about that is there is a look back law, and it says, if you do any trust planning, we're gonna look back 5 years and see if you put any of your assets in a trust. That's only applicable to statutory trusts. Because watch this. Remember, I'm gonna teach you why. Remember over here on the 99%, you could be all 3 positions, right? You could be the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary, right? It's because, why? Because that trust is in my personal estate. So if you take an asset and put it in a statutory trust, a living trust, it's still in your personal estate, the box. It's still in the same box. You just put it in a different corner of the box. So they look back 5 years and say, hey, you put it in a living trust, which is really you. See, you didn't actually take it out of your ownership. And that's why there's the look back is looking to see if you took an asset, put it in a living trust and just changed the title. It's called hiding. You just hid it with it. Because a living trust is a title trust. All it did was change title and that's it. Change title to a trust that you still own and control and manage and you have all 3 positions. So the look back, if I ever look back, only applies to grantor statutory trust. It doesn't apply, because watch this. Remember when I said you put everything in our trust? What do you have to do to put it in? You have to sell it. If I sell my house on the open market, I don't own my house anymore. If I went on realty.com and sold my house on the open market, when you sell it to this trust, you just sold it on the open market, because this trust over here is not you. It has its own EIN number. It has its own living, breathing life. It's not you. You might be the trustee, but that means it's not you though. And so that's why there's no look back, because you sold it on the open market. That's why there's no look back. You just sold on the open market is what you did. And now, but there is a 5-year look back, because in a living trust, you're selling it to yourself because you own your living trust. That's why there's a 5-year look back, because you own the very trust you put your house in, you own it. Remember, because if I get in a lawsuit, remember they're attaching everything in my living trust. I had a client lose his house in his living trust because he got the car wreck. He lost it all. And I said, it's because you own everything in that trust. That's why you don't want a living trust. You don't want a statutory trust. You want to sell it to a trust that you don't own. You don't own the trust. You do control it. Remember, we don't want ownership. And so once you can see why John Rockefeller said own nothing, now you understand. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're going to cover it in the tax controls.
Okay.
But the moment, we're hearing about transactions moving into the trust, and anytime there's a transaction, there's definitely tax impact. So how does we understand like a particular pertaining to the Article 643,
Yeah.
that it may not be taxable, but how is it getting around? I mean, the moment you're moving in, somebody has to pay taxes at that time, especially if they're saying we sold it to the
Yeah.
trust,
So you're talking about maybe like a house you sell into the trust?
something,
And you-
from an asset standpoint.
So your question is, am I gonna be taxed on that when I sell it to the trust? Is that the question?
Kind, yeah, yes.
Okay, so that all depends on what you sell it for. So if I bought a house for $1 million, I sell it to the trust for $2 million, someone tell me, what's the capital gain there? $1 million, right? But here's the thing, when you sell property, does anyone know the 3 ways to value property? You can Google it and look it up, I'm not making it up. What are the 3 ways you can value property? 3 different approaches.
Cost, income, and sales.
Thank you. There's a cost approach, there's an income approach, and a sales or market value approach, right? So if I bought it for $1 million, I sell it to my trust for $1 million, did I make a capital gain? If I bought it for $1 million and I sell it to my trust for $1 million, did I make a capital gain? No. If I bought it for $1 million and sold it for $2 million, because that's the market value, did I make a capital gain? Yeah, I made a capital gain. But watch this. This is the beautiful thing about this trust, is it doesn't matter if I sell it at cost, which I have the right to do, because there's a cost approach. I can value my property at the cost if I want. Or I can sell it to it at market value and still not owe capital gain in this trust. Why? Because in this trust, when I sell it to my trust, I'm going to create a demand note back to myself. Okay? And I'm going to file form 6252. It's called installment sale. Okay? So when I sell it to my trust, I'm going to file a form called 5262. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I do owe a capital gain if I take the money out of the demand note. But if I don't take the money out of the demand note, I haven't created the gain yet. So what do my clients do? Some of them, their CPAs are like, you better sell it at market value or you're going to get in trouble, which they're uninformed, but it's okay. We sell it at market value, okay? No problem. There's $1 million capital gain. We file form 6252, so there's a capital gain on the books in the note payable account in the trust, right? All trusts have P&L balance sheet, debt, they have debt. In the debt, in the note payable account, there is a capital gain there, sitting there. It never gets paid. Why? Because I never pull money from my demand note. If I don't pull money from my demand note, I haven't taken possession of the gain, so I don't owe a tax. So the answer is, it depends. Do you want to sell it for cost or do you want to sell it for a gain?
So pretty much it is a deferred tax until unless you come to a point that you have to sell it.
There you go. But what's interesting about that is here's the CPA's point of view. In your retirement, if you need money, would you rather take a salary from the trust and pay ordinary income tax, or would you rather take money from your demand note at a capital gain rate? Which one's better? Ordinary income or capital gain rate? Capital gain rate's a lot lower than ordinary income. Yeah.
It's capped at what?
So the
15%?
CPA is saying, hey, in your retirement, you're gonna need some money for food, fun, fashion, fitness, and facelifts. There's the 5 Fs. You're gonna need money for the 5 Fs in retirement. Food, fun, fashion, so you're gonna need money. So why not pull money from the demand note at a capital gain rate instead of ordinary income? That's what the CPA is gonna think and think. But by the way, if you're pulling principal, you don't pay tax on the principal. You're only paying tax on that gain, just so you know. Does someone else have a question over here?
I just had a quick question. When you were talking about the trustee and the grantor, are those positions that can be held by spouses, or do you need to pick a person that is outside of your nuclear family?
No. You can have, number one, you can have as many as trustees as you want. And then number two, your trustees can be family or non-family. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you can have.
Who does the grantor need to be?
The grantor needs to be someone other than you or anyone in your family. It can be your preacher from church. It can be your best friend from high school. It can be anyone other than you. But they just need to, once they grant the first asset in, the $50, they're going to sign a legal resignation, or they have no claim to any assets. So,
Because after that, you don't need them. You're doing everything with contracts.
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. You can go to the next slide. All right, cool. Now, has anyone heard of the Corporate Transparency Act? Okay, it's a big deal, and it kind of snuck up on everyone. People didn't know this. But the Democrats, I'm not getting political, but they did this to everyone. So let me explain what they did. They set up an act. They set up a way for all the people out there that like their privacy, where they have to now disclose everything about the company. It's called the Corporate Transparency Act, but there are exemptions, so not everyone applies. But if you're not exempt, you have to disclose who all the beneficial owners are in your company. So a lot of people, especially if you were to look up corporate structuring, you're going to find a company called Anderson Advisors out there. They're really popular. They set up you in 18,000 LLCs, and it doesn't matter what you are. I don't care what business you are. You need an LLC. They set up all these, and so you need them in Wyoming, you need them in Alaska, and here's why you need them. Blah blah blah. And they think they teach and preach and tell you that you're going to have all this privacy and no one's going to know all this stuff. Well, that doesn't happen anymore, because the Corporate Transparency Act says that if you have a statutory entity, LLC, C Corp, any entity created by the state, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, those are all creatures of the state. If you have a creature of the state, you're going to have to disclose all beneficial owners to the government. And not only that, there's ongoing reporting that you have to continuously do. So all these people that thought their structures were perfect and they had the best privacy and no one ever knows anything, and all of that has come crashing down now. So because of this act. Well, what's funny is on the list of exempt entities is a non-statutory trust. So that's a beautiful thing. So our trust will always be exempt from things like this. Why? Because remember that slide I showed you earlier, or maybe I did, that I said Article 1 of the Constitution said what? No state can pass a law impairing the obligation of contract. Okay, they can't pass a law. They cannot do any kind of Corporate Transparency Act. No Congress in Washington can ever create a law that changes the contract that we have in our trust. Okay, and that's Article 1 of the Constitution. And so, and Fletcher versus Peck, that happened like 1810 or something like that. They came out right in the beginning and said, hey, no state can change this trust, no state. And so this is just an example of how powerful our trust is, because our trust will always be exempt from things like that. Go ahead.
Have you had issues with banks requiring, I know from Know Your Customer and different things working with banks, they will require beneficial ownership information. I know you say to them, hey, you don't need it, but many of the people working there are undereducated on things.
Yeah.
Are you having a big problem with these being set up appropriately at the banks because they're trying to get around that?
Banks want you to show them your whole trust book.
Are you just doing?
Chase, Bank of America, there's a handful of them.
You just doing a certificate of trust?
That's it, COT. All we want to show them is an EIN letter and a COT, a certificate of trust. If you read the certificate of trust, it has everything the bank needs to know. In fact, the bank, if they're asking more questions as what's on a COT, they're probably they're either snooping or doing something illegal, because
Or just.
or just uneducated, because everything that the bank needs to know about your trust is on that certificate of trust. Everything they need to know is on that document. And so, but most banks, Chase, Bank of America, a lot of banks, they don't know anything about trust. Honestly, they really don't.
But they've always asked in our case,
Yeah.
the whole 200 some pages.
They want to see the whole thing. And you know what? They want to copy the whole thing
They
too.
want a copy of it.
And don't let them copy it.
Yeah, I mean, like.
Go to a
bank-
different bank. Go to
bank
Wells Fargo.
operation policies.
In fact, Wells Fargo doesn't even want you to bring the book in the bank. I've even had a Wells Fargo guy say, hey, you need to take that book out because we don't want that book. They got a big lawsuit one time because they used to copy the book, and that copy got out into the public, and they had to pay tens of millions of dollars because of that. And so Wells Fargo says, hey, don't even bring that book in our bank. We don't want to see it. In fact, they create their own COT. When you go in there, they don't even want you to bring a COT. That's what I love about Wells Fargo. If they don't even want your COT, they want to create their own COT. And so they're the easiest to set it up, but Truist Bank is easy to work
I know
with.
Regions uses COTs as well. I worked at Regions US Bank, but I know
Yeah.
Regions does one of those.
So,
But just since this came out, you haven't had major issues.
right, this is the main, we already went over this, so you can go to the next slide. We went over page 4, this is the tax code, so yeah, what's the question?
Very quick, you mentioned about the LLCs and the Transparency Act.
Yeah.
And the non-statutory trusts are exempted. But one of the purpose of LLC is to protect your assets.
Yeah, the problem with LLC is it stands for large lawsuit coming. is what it stands for. That's the problem with LLC, okay? It does protect some assets, but here's the problem with LLC. If you get a lawsuit with an LLC, even though, I mean, it stands for large lawsuit coming, but, not really, but LLCs are like lawsuit magnets, first of all. And when the lawsuit comes, did you know that LLCs do not protect you as a person from gross negligence or for punitive damages? They may protect from some liability, but here's the thing. I had a client say, well, we have 25 rental properties, so we have 25 LLCs, and if they get one house, they're not going to get the others. I'm like, well, why do you even want them to get one house? And so he thinks that having 25 LLCs with 20 rental properties is a good idea. And I'm like, why would you want to give them the option to take one of your properties from you? Why not set up a trust, get it all in a trust where not even the Supreme Court of the United States can come and take the property without changing the Constitution, by the way. And so the problem with LLCs is they have a little protection, just a little bit. So what happens if you lose? Here, let me explain the protection LLC gives you. Have an LLC, get a lawsuit, they can take anything in the LLC and gobble it up and give it to the plaintiff's attorney, okay? And they can't take anything in your personal estate, but they get everything in the LLC though. That's the point, is that the LLC doesn't protect from itself. The LLC doesn't protect its own self. In other words, you get a lawsuit with the LLC, they're gonna take everything in the LLC. And yeah, they can't touch your personal assets from the LLC unless you have gross negligence. Then they can touch your assets. Then they come get all your assets. For gross negligence or punitive damages, they could. So,
And I think, Mike, you answered the question, but pretty much where I was trying to go was, can LLC own a non-statutory trust? And I think the answer is yes.
no, because an LLC is statutory, and we would never want to put a non-statutory entity inside of a statutory entity.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so you'd never want to do that.
You don't want to-
Because the LLC is statutory and they make all the rules. So if you have an LLC, you gotta follow all the rules. In fact, when they change the rules, they say jump this high. No, jump this high. You better jump this high. You gotta do everything they tell you. You don't want to have an LLC ever. Well, now I actually have an LLC. In fact, all my clients do. But there's reasons to have an LLC if you need it. Like if I have a license, I have to keep in an LLC. I can't hold an insurance license in a trust. They don't allow that, right? So I have an LLC because I hold a license in there. But so they're not all bad because you have to. I can't sell insurance, but
Right, but the whole lawsuit thing, they cannot sue the trust because your house is rental properties in the trust?
no.
So
If
what
you
happens
have,
somebody falls in the house and they?
that's right. That's the beautiful thing is that they can never sue this trust for any reason. Why? Because the trust, in order for me to sue someone, that person I'm suing has to have equity of the asset and the title.
Right.
These trusts hold title to everything, but they hold no equity in the asset. So let me explain. These trusts were set up so that the rich people can put assets in here and never get it taken from them, ever, not even if they committed all the sin in the world. Nothing can take anything out of it. And this is why, because in order to sue and take an asset from someone, they have to have equitable title. Okay? So in a personal estate, remember I said you have a personal estate. Everything you own in that personal estate, your house, your car, your boat, you own equitable title. It means you own the equity of it and the title of it. Okay? But in a trust, and in this trust that we have, it's called a spendthrift trust. And in a spendthrift trust, you won't find it anywhere, and you go try to search it. Spendthrift trust does not hold equitable title. Go try to find it anywhere. They've made sure that no one will ever find out that secret. That spendthrift trust does not hold equitable title to the asset.
So who owns the equity of the house the goals.
Have you ever heard of a phrase called "for the benefit of"?
Okay,
Okay, like a 401k, right?
yeah.
It says, when you look at a 401k, it says, so-and-so IRA or 401k for the benefit of you, right? So you have a 401k, it's a 401k or an IRA is almost like a trust, where it's set up, but it's for the benefit of this person over here, right? So that's why they can't come after your 401k or IRA, because it's in and of itself a trust for the benefit of someone else, you see? And so this trust that we have, the beneficiaries, right? The trust was set up for the beneficiaries. So who holds the equity to all the assets in the trust? Not you, not the trust, beneficiaries. But here's the beautiful thing. The beneficiaries have no rights or claim to the assets because the spendthrift trust has like this brick wall between the trust and the beneficiary. So the beneficiaries only have rights, title, and claim only if the trustees allow it. It's called discretionary trust. Our trust, if you look right here, I think it's page 8 or 9 or something like that. Let me show you real quick. It says right here, here it is, page 5. These are the different foundations of the trust right here, okay? And one of them is discretionary. Discretionary means you get to choose if the beneficiaries hold the keys to the property or hold the keys to the car. In other words, everything is for the benefit of the beneficiaries, but that's kind of like a loophole, so that no one can ever take anything from the trust. Because guess what? If you never actually hand them the keys, or you never actually distribute money to them, they're never going to get anything. Never. Because it's a discretionary trust. You have all discretion, and no one can tell you they cannot force upon you, say, hey, you should give that money to that kid, you know? They can't ever say that to you because you hold all discretion. It's a discretionary trust. So in a grantor trust, y'all remember the 99%, right? All of here, the grantor trust, the 99% living trust people? Those beneficiaries actually hold claim to the assets. And they can go to a court and actually get title to assets in a living trust. They can actually go to court and a judge can rule, hey, give them this asset. Beneficiaries in living trust hold claim. Beneficiaries in our trust hold no legal claim. They have no rights, no claim, no benefits. Unless, guess what? I say they get that right. See, and that's so beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And so my kids, they may get a house of mine one day. They may get a car of mine one day if she and I decide to give them a house or a car. You see? But that's it. That's all. Now, I want to get to the tax part before y'all kick me out of here and say, hey, time's up. So I want to get to the tax part. Now.
Hey, Scott?
Yeah.
Could we maybe see if anybody needs a bio break or would like?
Yeah, the drink break or coffee break.
Anybody? You've been at it for a while.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep going until y'all kick me out of here.
Yeah, let's give folks maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, that's
fine. Refresh the drink, get a snack.
All right.
Where's the restroom?
I do have a business card here. If you want to hold the card.
Right across.
Right across.
Yeah, if you look behind the table.
Okay. I will take that.
Like the metal? It's a sharp weapon. You can like attack.
Yeah, it's good for, winter, you can split ice.
Yeah. Don't put it in your wallet and go through the metal detector.
No, it works.
Yeah?
Some chemical metals,
Like-
can also be a problem.
This one seems like a little bit more.
No, you sell the house and now the trust takes all the money back in and there's no tax on it. It's not considered. Yeah, it's all passed through. I'll go over that. So one thing to understand is that everything that goes in this trust is property of a United States trust. So it carries all the powers and provisions of the United States. So if you can hold international property all day long, you can I have private properties all over the world. But it's owned by what's called a U.S. entity. So you have to look up in that country what the rules are for foreign owned assets. So some countries will say, hey, there's a tax. If you're a foreign owned entity, you have a tax to pay.
This is so interesting, because I actually have an attorney, Ernie, at PMG, who set up some spendthrift thrift trust for us.
Okay.
But he's about to retire. It is so difficult to find people who will do these.
Oh, I know. Well, we have tax people you can use.
Yeah, literally, that's why I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just, I am obnoxious because I'm very interested in finding people who do similar structures.
All right, well, we'd love to work with them.
Do you do business overseas?
We don't actually do business overseas because our trusts are considered domestic trusts. They're not foreign trusts, so we don't want to set up a foreign trust. The IRS actually targets foreign trusts to see if they're breaking our rules, you know? So we don't.
It's an attractive,
Yeah, we don't want to. We want to have a domestic trust. We want a trust that was created here, so that the IRS doesn't have a problem with it. Yeah, it's crazy. It's good stuff.
Actually, I not very honest trust, but I did my mom. So
Okay.
the lawyer asked me, he had to tell me a lot of things. So yes,
Yeah.
I understand now why.
Well, you can do your own trust. There's no one stopping anyone from setting up their own trust. But the best part we save for last, and that's the taxes. So I'm going to show you how we take a company paying $1 million in tax, we take it all the way down to maybe paying 10 grand in tax. That's about it. And using the trust. So as long as the money goes in, it's passive income, and I'll show you on like page 12 or whatever. There's 6 types of income that the IRS code says is basically not considered income. 13, page 13. So we're going to get to that page here in just a second. But that's the most exciting page because most people have rental properties or they have all this income coming in. It's all passive. Well, did you know that you don't have to pay tax on that if you had it in a trust? You do have to pay tax if you distribute, but we don't ever distribute. That's what we do.
But how do you, when you do your tax, right? Income tax. How do you just simply ignore it in your tax?
No. So every trust has a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement.
So you get a 1099 or get some.
Yeah, so anytime, let's say you have a Fidelity account or a Schwab account, right? They send you a 1098, right? You're getting you made much of money, so you're getting a document that says, hey, this trust made $1 million. We take that 1098, we file it on the schedule in the tax return and say, hey, IRS, we made $1 million this year. But we also do a deduction for $1 million because we file another form in the tax return that says, hey, all this income right here is all allocated to corporate, so we're not going to distribute anything. We tell the IRS that, and they can't charge us a tax.
So should I tell my CPA, for example, I have a trust?
Well, first of all, you have to tell your CPA the type of trust that you're having. So if you have the wrong type of trust, you can't do this. Because this tax code only works for a irrevocable, non-grantor, complex, discretionary spendthrift trust. It only works for a trust that has all those provisions. And so that's kind of the secret sauce to the whole program, is that if I take any trust from anyone and try to do this, it won't work. The IRS is going to flag and say, hey, you owe us a bunch of money now. Because most trusts fall under the simple tax code, they don't fall under the complex.
I'm glad to be back in your conditioning.
So, all right, well, thanks everyone for coming back. It's good they all came back, so. Trusts fall under 2 different codes. It's called the simple tax code or the complex tax code. 99.9% of all trusts in the United States fall under the simple tax code. Can anyone guess why they fall under the simple tax code?
Because it doesn't include what you said.
Because say it again?
It doesn't include all the requirement, like you said here.
Right, but remember when I said earlier, I was reading on page 4, I said, it says in the first sentence, as long as you do not pay credit or require what? Distribution. Remember how 99% of all trusts have to distribute everything? When you have to distribute everything all the income in the trust, you fall into a tax code called the simple tax code. When you fall into the simple tax code, you automatically have to distribute all of your profits or income, right? Well, this is a beautiful thing for us because when we make income, as long as it's passive income, so real quick, everyone turn to page 13. Can everyone turn to page 13? Page 13, all right. Now, all right. At the bottom it says 14 or 16, but it's actually page 13. Okay. You look at the top of the page, it says 6 types of income that's not considered income to the trust. Now, that's pretty interesting, that income is really not income. That's kind of interesting. So as long as it's passive, look right there, rental income, number 1, number 2 is royalty, rents, royalties, interest, dividends, K1, passive, and capital gain. So if you have an LLC and you distribute money from the LLC, because remember LLC is a passive, right? When you distribute money, that's a K1, right? But K1s can be either active or passive. So does anyone have an idea what makes an K1 active in LLC?
Payroll?
What?
Payroll?
That's true, but in payroll,
Participation,
you want that?
material participation.
That's true. So if you're a managing partner in LLC, when you make your income, you're a managing partner, you actually earn the money. It's earned income. So when you get your K1, it's active. It goes on a 1040 usually. It's active income. You have to pay tax on active income. But if I'm an investor and I invest in a private equity fund and I'm what's called a limited partner, so remember, managing partners, that's active income. But limited partners, that's what kind of income? Passive. So that means you didn't earn the money, you just received money because you invested in a project, right? So that's passive income. As long as it's passive income, and it can go in this trust, and the IRS says, hey, that's not considered income. So passive means rental, like you have a rental property. If you have a rental house, when the rental property has rental income, did you earn the money or did the house earn the money?
The house.
The house earned the money. You didn't earn it, the house earned it. The house earned the money. So when an asset produces income, that's passive. And so that's why wealthy people, watch this, you won't believe me when I tell you this, but wealthy people never, if our trusts never pay the IRS, not even 1 penny the rest of their life. And here's why. Because when they set this trust up, all their assets go in and all their assets produce all this money. So they're retired, they're wealthy, they don't need money anymore, right? So when all their assets are in this trust and they're producing all this passive income, and it all stays in the trust, they don't have a need to ever have another dime paid to the IRS ever again. Why? Because all the income is now passive, and the IRS code right there says, hey, that's not income. So if there's not income, there's no taxes, right?
I mean, just to be a little bit of a shit, how they buy groceries, they gotta have income going into their checking account.
No, and that's a great, remember I said there's 5 F's that you have to pay for. The trust can't pay for the 5 F's. Remember that? Food, fun, fashion, fitness, and facelifts, okay? So the trust does not eat, it doesn't get facelifts, it doesn't have fun, the trust doesn't go on roller coasters, okay? Trust doesn't play baseball. The trust doesn't do the 5 F's. So you have to pay out of your personal estate or personal bank account the 5 F's.
The things that you're consuming for your lifestyle.
That's right. But everything else the trust pays for. Watch this.
Gotcha.
The mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the light bill, the water bill, gas bill, electric bill, the bug guy, the pool guy. All of those bills can be paid for in the trust, not by you. The mortgage is paid by the trust. The insurance on the house, the utilities, the taxes. Because here's the rule. We have rules we live by. Rule number 1, own nothing, control everything. Rule number 1. Rule number 2, if the trust owns it, the trust pays the bill. So if the trust owns my house, guess who's going to pay every bill associated with that house? The trust, not me. Now, if the trust owns my car, do I pay for the gas in my car? No. The trust pays for that car, not me. It owns the car, I don't own the car. The trust, it's the trust, my cell phone over there, my trust owns my cell phone, I don't pay my cell phone bill, my trust pays my cell phone. Because it owns that cell phone, it needs to pay the bill.
How about stock market income?
Say it again?
Stock market income.
Yeah, so that's dividends. So, yeah, if your trust owns your stock, then the trust has to pay the fees or whatever. You know, the trust pays for any bill associated. So here's what I'm trying to say. 90% of everything you pay out of your bank account will now be paid with pre-tax money, not post-tax money.
What about restaurants and food? That's something you still have to pay.
That's one of the 5S though. Food,
That's,
fun,
that
fast.
doesn't come out of the trust. But how does, if the trust is just giving you promissory notes for your property, where's the money coming from to pay the pool guy?
Well, that's a beautiful thing, because when you put all of your houses and rental properties and all your investments and Schwab accounts and Fidelity accounts, you put everything over here, now that money coming in has to go to the trust, not to you anymore. So now that trust has income because it has assets. Because it has assets, it's going to have income because it can't go to you anymore. The income can't go to you. It's not allowed to, you don't own it. The income has to go to the trust now.
So so you would pair up a property with a Schwab account, and the dividends from the Schwab account pays the pool guy.
That's exactly right, instantly. That's right, and it pays the utilities, the light bill, the water. Now here's what, you won't believe me when I say this, but I can show you how to pay off your house in 3 years. 2 to 3 years without changing anything in your financial situation, except you getting this trust that I have. Here's why. Because let's say, I have a video on my, can you go to google.com? Or actually, yeah, if you can go to Google, I don't know if you can, if you're online. But on my website, I have this video, I think it's still on there. Type in nexus.com. I think it's on my website. Okay, scroll down a little bit. Scroll down, and, okay, click on, hold on a second. I have a mortgage video. Click on assets controlling. See if that one's it. Yeah. Press play and then see if that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So go on, click right here and maximize it. Maximize it. And go right here and click the volume. Oh, okay. Well, the audio is not so loud. But here's the thing. Watch how I do this. Watch this. You pay your mortgage with post-tax money. I'm going to show you how to pay your mortgage with pre-tax money. Okay, can you stop? So what I'm gonna show you is when you redirect that money from your business, you gotta be a business owner, because if you work at Walmart, you can't redirect W-2 income. You understand that? If you're a business owner, you can redirect that money through creative means, through PSAs called well, we call them PSAs, they're professional service agreements. So I can contract a business trust, not a beneficial trust, a business. I can contract a business trust to provide all of the services of that business. So 95% of the money comes out of that business into the business trust. And then whatever's not used for expenses in the business gets distributed to the beneficiary. Who do you think the beneficiary is of a business trust? Your beneficial trust, right? So the beneficial trust, the one I'm talking about, is the beneficiary of the business trust. So all your money comes out, gets distributed down your beneficial trust. That's pre-tax money. Everything in your trust that you set up, all your assets, you remember, you just sold them all in the trust, right? All the money that now comes into that trust, as long as it's passive, it's gotta be passive, is all pre-tax money, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to turn the majority of your active income in your business, in your LLC, C Corp, whatever you have, we're gonna turn the majority of that into passive income coming into this trust. And guess what you can do with passive income? You can pay off debt really fast. So all that money you earn in the IRS is going straight to the principal of your debt. And you're gonna get out of debt in light speed. And that's what rich people do. They use these trusts to pay off debt in light speed. And it's amazing. And it blows away all these other tax strategies out there. Believe me, I worked at American Express Financial Advisor. I've seen every tax strategy on the planet. Depreciation, bonus depreciation, cost segregation. Those are all junk, okay?
So Scott, I have 2% left on my battery.
Okay, no,
Sorry.
that's fine. No, I don't even need the computer anymore.
Okay,
I can just
okay,
talk.
okay.
So, let me end with this, okay? 99% of real estate people depreciate everything, thinking that's the way out of not having to pay tax. The problem with depreciating all your assets, and I have a video, by the way, that explains all this, but the problem with depreciating all your assets is your book value goes to nothing. When your book value goes to nothing and you go to sell, what's the tax that they come and hit you with? Starts with an R. Recapture. They're gonna come and take all that capital gain money that you thought you were depreciating, they're gonna come back and get it all right back from you. So for every gimme, there's a gotcha. And so I can show real estate people how to avoid 100% of cost segregation, bonus depreciation, all that crap. It's all bogus, it's all junk. Because when you depreciate, you always lose something. When you depreciate your assets, you're giving up your equity. Remember when I said, I take all my assets and I sell it to my trust and then I hold I hold the paper? When you depreciate, guess what you just did to your paper? You just knocked it down. You gave away your debt. Sorry, you gave away your equity to the IRS is what you did. So people, all these real estate people over here, hey, I didn't pay any tax this year. They don't know that in the back of their mind, they don't know that they just gave away all their equity to the IRS. They don't see that. And so that's what I have to teach the real estate people. Say, hey, you're cost sagging all of your, and bonus depreciating all of your real estate thinking you're doing yourself a favor. You're not. Because when you go to resell that property, they're going to hit you with that recapture tax. And you just gave all your equity to the IRS. Now you're a demand note. So now when they sell the property to the trust, what do I have?